How do you represent what your hero stands for musically, especially one as big as the Batman? Well, composer Michael Giacchino starts here. This is Ave Maria by Franz Schubert, which you hear again a few seconds later, but in a minor key version of it and as a fragment. Giacchino has a real knack for using just a few transformative notes to represent his characters, which is on display in the Riddler's theme. And as for the full diegetic operatic version of Ave Maria, it is introduced thrice in the movie. Once at the very start, the second time at the funeral of the mayor.
Mr. Wayne, you know, you really could be doing more for this city.
And a third time in the orphanage, when Riddler talks about Thomas Wayne's death.
The hell is that?
All three fitting the music very naturally, because Ave Maria is funeral music, the translation of which from Latin means Hail Mary. And the melody itself has deep ties to Christian religion and death. But Ave Maria isn't the only composition in this movie that represents it. We are introduced to the Batman's theme pretty early on with the track aptly named Can't Fight City Halloween. Giacchino's theme for Batman is based on these four notes. And if they feel like they're vaguely familiar, like you've heard them before, it's because they're based on the classical piece Funeral March by Chopin. And Funeral March dates back to the origin of soundtrack itself, which I have talked about on this channel before, about how during the era of silent movies, theatre owners hired orchestras to play live music to fill in the silence of the room, which eventually culminated in the invention of the vitaphone with the jazz singer.
Wait a minute, you ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you.
And how before that, in the year 1924, a composer named Ennio Rapet standardized a list of compositions appropriate to play by the live orchestra with what was happening on screen and called it befittingly Motion Picture Moods. And this book was the birthplace of musical choices that are still used to this day in movies. And the piece of music that Rapet most correlated with death and funerals in his book was Funeral March by Chopin, which appropriately has been used as an inspiration for villainous characters in the past, most notably Darth Vader. It's death for Batman. And here I think the answer lies if you take a look at the Riddler's theme. Ave Maria and Funeral March are both variations on the same topic, death. But it is the way that death is represented in their musical themes, using instrumentation, is what makes the difference here. Here we breach the idea of leitmotifs, which are essentially a small set of sounds that get associated with people or places or ideas, and those are what make a difference here. Both their leitmotifs are represented in different key signatures. This is the leitmotif for Riddler. And this is the leitmotif for Batman. And where the Riddler's leitmotif is in a minor key signature using human vocals that end in semitone, Batman's theme is in major key using heavy brass instruments. The use of brass instruments here brings the theme over into a more heroic mood, one side of a musical coin that represents the solution to the crime of Gotham, in context to death because of how Matt Reeves views Batman himself. In his perspective, Bruce Wayne died the night his parents were killed. The only thing remaining in him is vengeance to make sure that nobody else meets the same fate. He did. That nobody walks around as an empty shell because of death. And the Riddler portrays the opposite side of that musical coin. A man so jaded by death that he wishes the same fate upon everyone else.
Do you know what being an orphan is? There's 30 kids to a room.
Both these men approach death very differently, but as if both of them are mirror images of each other in the childhood trauma that they both received. Both are orphans due to the violence of Gotham City, and both of them want to get rid of crime that perpetuates the same lives as them. Riddler wants to get rid of corruption that dooms orphans to lives of desperation and potential death, and sees the entire system and the city at fault. While on the other hand, Batman wants to get rid of crime that perpetuates traumatized lives such as his, but by bringing them to justice, and this justice is what is reflected in the music that represents Batman. And because we all know Batman does not kill,
No. We'll get him.
this allows Giacchino to represent Batman using brass instruments and major key signature on a piece of music that is centered around death. Superhero themes have always been brass heavy and in major key, but Giacchino's Batman theme isn't great because it's very brass heavy. It's great because it takes what affects Batman the most, death, and converts that into a heroic sound, the same way Bruce Wayne takes his pain and converts it into the Batman.